It's been a good couple months for anime movies. The Chainsaw Man Reze arc was phenomenal. Last week's video was primarily built around it. And this week's is inspired by 100 Meters, another really well-received anime film. There are tons of different moments in the movie worth talking about, like its beautiful and jarring stylized use of rotoscoping, or a couple scenes that are absolute standouts, ones that if they haven't gone viral already, will. But today we're going to be focusing on something else, a larger trend I've noticed myself following recently, and then tie it back into analysis of 100 Meters. So let's get to the thesis. Often great stories, especially anime, make me care deeply about something I thought I didn't like. Running? No. Concert band? Tried it? Definitely no. Volleyball? Maybe, but not really something I thought I'd be interested in. Today we're going to be talking about 3 shows and a movie that really made me care about topics I never expected to care about. Welcome to this week's video. My name is Pei, and today we're talking about when anime changes your mind. It's amazing how much of our decision-making process when it comes to consuming media is influenced by vibe. There are topics, maybe due to circumstance or temperament, that I inherently find uninteresting. And when stories are built around those, they have to be really good or offer something that is appealing for me to kind of take that leap of faith. Watching shows or reading stories is ultimately built around this question of whether or not I think it'll be worth it. That being said, some of my recent favorite stories have pulled off the impressive feat of taking a topic I find uninteresting and making it fascinating. The first obvious one is the hyper-popular show Haikyuu. It's a beloved story for good reason, and it's all built around volleyball. I actually love Haikyuu so much, it's one of the few manga I've fully finished. You know, one of those classic cases of catching up and needing to know how it will end. Haikyuu holds a very dear place in my heart for a multitude of reasons, but one of the first and therefore critically important parts of the show that made me love it as much as I do is how it handled volleyball and sports. Many sports anime are great stories that deeply misunderstand the topic they're built around. I've always had issues with shows like Kuroko no Basket, which despite its quality, consistently makes writing decisions that breaks immersion for me. Haikyuu does an excellent job representing volleyball. Multiple Olympic players have made entire videos dedicated to analyzing just how realistic it can be at times. And it finds that kind of magical middle ground, because when it does exaggerate, it feels like it's capturing the magic that's hard to explain behind competitive sports. You know, that old moniker, art is a lie that tells the truth. I remember very distinctly when I was a kid tagging along with my aunt to local volleyball pickup games organized by a church. I distinctly remember wondering to myself how anyone could possibly find it fun. Little did I know that years later I'd be completely emotionally invested, crying and cheering on a fictional men's high school volleyball team. Haikyuu is such a good show that it sold me on a sport I once considered baseball levels of boring. Maybe someday an anime will come along and convince me that 162 games in a season is actually engaging and fun. But ultimately, that's the magic of Haikyuu and the other shows we're talking about today. There's something really fun about discovering a love and passion for something you thought you didn't care about. The second example today is Sound Euphonium. It also changed my mind on an opinion I have that ultimately has zero stakes on whether or not I like or dislike it. This time though, it's different. Unlike Haikyuu and volleyball, I was actually in concert band for a big portion of my childhood. I played the flute and then percussion and piano. I was actually, even for a brief period, pretty good at it. In 6th grade, I was placed above my class into a higher difficulty band, but by 8th grade I decided it wasn't for me and quit. I really don't find concert band very engaging, and in some ways even see it as a little bit sad. A lot of the most talented musicians I've ever met have dedicated their entire lives to a pursuit that ultimately has very few future prospects. It's hyper-competitive, and even those I know who found pretty decent success struggle through the life that comes with being a professional concert musician. But that's the thing about passions that is really demonstrated beautifully in the show. Not every pursuit needs external validation. Would it be nicer if there was more financial stability in being a professional concert musician? Yes. But passions often aren't rational, and there's intense value in finding compromises to keep participating in something that you find beautiful. Sound Euphonium is a very strong story built around 3 seasons and a couple movies. Sometimes the lasting impact of a story, how it sits with you after it's done, can be as important as the viewing experience. And Sound Euphonium's a show that sits with me. And it's not like one of those, yeah, this show is technically about concert band, but none of the good parts are actually about concert band. All of these stories I'm talking about today don't just use their setting as an excuse to tell a good story. Volleyball, concert band, and track and field are fundamental parts of what make the stories good. finding deep emotional meaning in things that I've never considered. Some of the most memorable scenes I've ever experienced come from Sound Euphonium, and they're built around playing music together, competitive auditions for solos, performing important pieces of music, and dedicating yourself fully huge sums of time for just marginal increases in quality. This story explores what it's like to do something overwhelmingly challenging just to see what happens. And part of the reason I haven't talked about it more is because I want to explore it fully. It's the type of story where its most meaningful components require context, doing the unlikely and taking something that I find so inherently uninteresting and making it deeply compelling. Because ultimately stories are told through empathy, stepping out of your perspective for a bit to observe someone else's life. Sometimes it's individual stories or an ensemble, and I think it's just a remarkably valuable experience. There are so many benefits that come in life from better understanding others. We spend our entire lives viewing everything through our own lens, because increased clarity on why people are making the actions they are can help immensely when it comes to connecting with others or understanding why they may have done something that hurts you. Context and understanding is incredibly valuable, and these stories to me all capture something magical about that. They're obvious low-stakes examples of how stories can change your mind. The third and final topic of this video is track and field. I've spent huge portions of my life finding great distractions that help me ignore the fact that I'm running. I'd much rather play basketball or badminton to be physically active than go for a jog. I even ran track for a couple years, but I never really got to that point where I really loved running. Part of what made it initially unappealing to me, but also really interesting in these stories, is how running is kind of the simplest form of athletic competition. Who can get from point A to point B as fast as possible? This kind of applies to most track and field events. Who can jump the highest, throw a heavy object the furthest, or run the fastest? And something Run with the Wind in 100 meters has done fantastically is shown me the beauty of that simplicity. And it's kind of funny because they're about very different types of running. Run with the Wind focuses on long distance, and 100 meters obviously focuses on sprints. And despite being about the same general topic, running, they're incredibly different types of competition. Run with the Wind is about a type of long distance race where it's a team sport. People are heavily relying on one another, and that's a central part of the story that's explored really beautifully, working well in conjunction with its fantastic ensemble cast. All of these shows have done a wonderful job of not only tapping into the human experience and struggle, but also tying that directly back into the topic of the show. And because I can empathize with the characters and human aspect of it, it makes the topic more approachable. Because passion is interesting, it makes for a great story, and these 4 shows are filled to the brim with passion. There's this great question that's explored in Run with the Wind. One character asks another, "Why do we run?" And they don't have a good response. Because like I said, appealing to the human condition makes these stories more approachable, even if you don't know much about the topic. And that question can kind of be applied to any pursuit. Why do we do what we do? The process, the result, just so we have something to focus on? Well, in a lot of ways, 100 meters explores the exact same story, coming together beautifully in the finale of the movie. Imagine dedicating yourself entirely to a competition that's around 10 seconds long. It's a sport that to some degree must attract a crazy type of competitor. This is the point in the video where I should give a spoiler warning because I want to talk about a couple important scenes in the film, so go watch it if you haven't. Each act of this movie is broken up very clearly by time skips, and each one ends with a race between the 2 main characters. 2 of the most obvious standout scenes in this movie are the second and third race. The second race is built around a one-take long shot. I'm actually writing a whole script about exploring that specific topic. But the shorthand of what makes it so special is how they capture everything leading up to the race. The rain, the warm-up, the anxiety as it slowly builds to the competition. It's really cool. And then the actual race part of this scene lasts about 20 seconds. They run, there's a slow motion turning point, and the protagonist loses. It captures something I've never had the privilege of experiencing. While I have had the opportunity to compete at a high level in a couple different things, it was never like this. And it was so cool to not only get a glimpse into that, but be incredibly emotionally invested in the story. This movie obviously uses intense stylized rotoscoping, and I think that greatly benefits the story it's trying to tell. Its weird tone supports its even weirder characters. Each runner is going through their own philosophical and melodramatic experience, fully committed to their own weird little philosophies that are kind of pseudo-intellectual, but also deeply profound depending on how you look at it. I don't think these weird monologues that happen throughout the story are supposed to make complete sense, but that's kind of the point. To be the best in the country at something, especially something as uniquely challenging as sprinting, requires a certain mindset that's almost irrational. The story uses a wide range of directing tools available to make each 100-meter dash interesting. The sound design in this movie is incredibly deliberate, an obvious example being the different starting sounds in each race, from a train going over a track to a water droplet in the rain. Sound is utilized fully to help with the immersion, and probably the best part of the movie is its ending, when one character talks to another about the beauty and euphoria of a 10-second race, how dedicating yourself completely to something so brief can add to the stakes and reward of it. So in the final race and ultimate crescendo of the film, the 10 seconds is stretched to a minute. Once again, a lie that tells the truth, where the two main characters are running alongside one another, and those brief seconds transform into something much longer. Sprinting in stride with one another, their shoes go back to when they were kids, when running was simple and beautiful. And before we get a chance to see who wins, we just see them smiling, and then it cuts to black. 100 Meters was able to make me care so deeply about the story, and central to its entire existence was sprinting. Sometimes liking movies is picking and choosing the parts that appeal to you. But with this movie and these other 3 shows, I ended up in a completely different place than when I first started watching. While these shows won't necessarily fit that same category for you, I'm sure there's stories that do. Ones where it took you a while for you to actually give a shot just because of how little you were interested in the topic. And then it ended up being a personal favorite. There's something really special about that specific experience. To me, it kind of represents the magic of storytelling. So cheers to all the stories that help change our minds. I'll see y'all next week. Thanks for watching.